Hi guys, my name is Archie Topp, and I started learning the piano over 12 years ago. The journey so far has been amazing, and I wouldn't change a bit of it even if I could. That being said, there are a few things, after reflecting on everything I've done, that I'd wished I'd known along the way, that would have streamlined my learning and just made the whole process more efficient. So I'd like to talk to you about some of those realizations that took me years to have, in the hopes that it accelerates your playing, and most importantly, your enjoyment. So, all of this is based around a question that, in my opinion, isn't re-evaluated frequently enough, and also not given the specificity it deserves. That question is, why are you learning the piano? This seems like a simple question that most people would have an answer to, right? It's fun to learn, or at the very least fun to play once you have learned. But that's not what I mean by the question. Why did you actually start playing in the first place? It could have been that you've always seen people play and you wish that could be you, or you saw an inspiring concert. Either way, a lot of people start just knowing that they want to learn the piano. Learn the piano. I don't know how to do that. Learn the piano. But the piano spans almost every genre. There's more than enough to learn about it and music as a whole than you ever could in a lifetime. So the question is really one of vision. What do you want to be able to do by learning the piano? Different genres, different techniques, different styles. These can all lie on quite different paths. And you might not have even given the fact that there are other paths much consideration. Even if it is the case that you started with a super clear vision and a goal in mind, it's really easy to just be thrown off that when all of a sudden you're being asked to practice scales, study all this theory, and getting advised on the next piece you should learn. It becomes easier and easier to get caught up in that week-to-week study that you could start to follow almost blindly. So with all that in mind, let me show you how I break down learning the piano so you can get where you want to go. So the way I see it, there are 5 core abilities that you might want to have in the piano, each of them requiring multiple different skills to attain that overall ability. The first of these abilities is repertoire. This is just the ability to play songs you like on the piano. Hopefully you like them. Depending on the difficulty of the pieces you want to learn, you might not even need formal tuition for this ability. You could just watch those YouTube videos that tell you exactly where to put your fingers, and you would definitely be playing the piano, but it would be a big struggle. The second ability is sight reading. In its purest form, at a master level, the ability is just to play any piece of music that's given to you when it's in the form of sheet music. The idea behind sight reading is that you train your brain to read sheet music like you read a book, and you translate the dots and lines on the pages to movements in your fingers on the keyboard, just like you translate the words to sounds from your mouth. The third ability is musical ear, which is the ability to play any song that you've listened to. Anyone who isn't tone deaf should be able to kind of line up the notes, but similarly, Jesus, that's a hard word. But similarly to sight reading, at its highest level, you should be able to hear something once and just play it. The fourth ability is improvisation, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's the ability to make up music in the moment, and hopefully for it to sound good. Technically, you are making up your own music if you just kind of bang on the keyboard. That is improvising. I believe Thelonious Monk said the keyboard has no wrong notes, but maybe take that with a pinch of salt. And finally, the fifth ability is composition, being able to write your own music. I think we can all agree that all of these abilities have their merits and attractions, and no one would turn down waking up in the morning and having mastery over just one of them. Now you could try and excel in exclusively one of these abilities, but to be a well-rounded pianist, and honestly a well-rounded musician, a basic skill level in all of them should be pursued. However, firstly, there's no law saying you have to be a well-rounded pianist. If you don't find composition fun, and you have no desire of ever writing your own music, then maybe your time is better spent elsewhere. You're not a lesser pianist for doing what you enjoy. Although I don't necessarily recommend this because of the whole well-roundedness thing, and your teacher probably wouldn't appreciate me saying it either, but doing this is a whole lot better than quitting just because that aspect of the piano isn't for you at this point in your learning. And that's something I've seen countless others do. How many times have you heard someone say, "I used to play the piano"? People often stop because of those things that you're gonna have to learn that aren't the most thrilling in the world. And these things will always be there in your learning, and I recommend you try to persevere with the majority of them. But if it gets to the point that it plateaus your learning and enjoyment, and you're thinking you might quit, do not quit the piano altogether. And remember, you can always just return to learning that area in the future, something you can't do if you quit altogether. Secondly, it's possible you never really considered some of these areas as something open to practice. Most conventional teaching methods don't split their focus between all of these areas because it would make your knowledge very broad, but it would have quite little depth. Take piano grades, for example. These generally focus on repertoire, sight reading, and some composition too, taking you predominantly down the path of the classical genre using a very specific technique with the aim of accurately replicating the style of famous classical composers. Staying on this path would be the perfect one to become a concert pianist, and undeniably a very proficient pianist as a whole. But there's little way around the fact that your improvisational skills, musical ear, and to some extent a repertoire that isn't classical will be falling behind the other abilities focused on. Needing to rely on the sheet music. What? Sheet music, what's that? Furthermore, with such a large focus on sight reading, diligent classically trained pianists can tend to have an underdeveloped musical memory, needing to rely on the sheet music instead. Meaning, in an extreme case, if their sheet music isn't to hand, they might not be able to play anything. This does of course vary from person to person, but I'd be unsurprised if the relationship between sight reading skill and musical memory was inversely proportional. I'll be sure to discuss this in depth in another video. Anyway, with all this in mind, if you'd start learning the piano to make up music on the fly, or play popular music to your friends at a public piano, or play something you hear off the radio, then grades, after a certain point, could become the wrong path. Now I say after a certain point because there are two other crucial things grades teach you: music theory and technique. Remember how I said when you start to learn the piano, you get all of these scales and theories thrown at you, irrespective of the reason you're learning? This is because music theory and technique underpin all of the abilities mentioned. So if you were secretly hoping I was going to tell you there's no point in practicing your scales, I can't. I really wish I could, but I can't. Every single one of these will be improved by your knowledge of music theory and your technique. Which is why, for the most part, classical grades will definitely be worth your while because they hammer that stuff into you. So there's a chance all this sounds pretty obvious. If you want to learn jazz, don't learn classical, right? And yeah, that is in essence what I'm saying. But my point is that it's all too easy to start learning and then continue down the path most travelled. Finish grade 1, onto 2, 3, 4, etc. And with everything else going on in your life, it's entirely possible that you're doing your lessons and your practice as you've been instructed without giving the question, why are you learning the piano? A real thought. So, I hope the takeaway of this video is that if you want your progress to be as efficient as possible, it can be as simple as taking charge of your learning and making sure you're progressing where you actually want to go. You should also find that you start to love the piano even more when you begin doing the things that really excite you on it. And if you want to see real progress, you need to become addicted to it. Thank you so much for watching, particularly if you've watched this far. It would honestly blow me away if anyone actually has. If you did like the video, then leave a like and subscribe and all that. And I'd love to hear some of your comments below. Cheers!